Hi there, this is Shinjini from Modern Gypsy, and today I have something a little bit different than usual. So, while I was cleaning out my studio, I found my very first art journal, and this is some of the art journaling and the paintings that I did when I was just learning art and getting into art journaling. So this is, I think, around 2013 and 2014. And if and this is my second go around at art. So I've spoken about my art journey, in more detail on my podcast, and I will leave a link to that episode in the description box in YouTube. But had started with art with altered books in around, I think, about 2003 2004. And at that time, again, I came to art with absolutely no experience, no background at all in art. And I was just learning at that time. There weren't too many art materials, were not very easily available here in India, and I found it very difficult to actually really create art because most of the people at that time, we used to share in Yahoo groups and the kind of supplies and the scrapbook papers and the little collage materials, etc., that people had and were using in their art, in their altered books, they were just not available here. And again, I knew nothing about art, and at that time, e-courses were really not a thing, or at least I didn't really find any. And so within about a year or so, I kind of also just made the mistake of comparing my work, my beginner's attempts at art, to teachers, to what they were teaching. And well, needless to say, very quickly I kind of gave up, and I call that phase my blocked artist phase, when I was convinced that I could not paint and art was just not my thing. But then I came back to art again in after about 10 years. And by then, of course, the landscape had changed a lot. There were no more, people weren't really working in altered books anymore. Art journaling had become a thing. And by then, online teaching was really big, and it was really, I think it was either picking up, it was already really big. And then the Indian market started opening up as well, and we started getting a lot of materials here. But that's just a really long story. So finding that first art journal reminded me of some of the old books that I have in my stash, and this is one of them. This is one that I had picked up around the time that I was learning how to make altered books. So this is Artists Journal and Sketchbooks by Lynne Perrella. And I've had this book, and I remember that I used to love, the artwork in this book. And I used to just examine it really closely to see what the artist had done, and to see, okay, these look like stencils, that looks like a tag, and just try and work backwards to kind of see how did these people create these beautiful pieces of artwork in their sketchbooks. So just going down memory lane, I kind of picked up this book from my bookshelf again, and as I was flipping through it, one of the things that I was kind of struck by is how some of these pieces still really speak to me. Some things never spoke to me even back in about 2004 or so, when I was going through this book. Like, I was never really into the whole vintage craze. This did nothing for me. But I also realized how much art has changed, and it's kind of just grown and deepened and evolved in so many different ways since this time. But there was some pieces here that I remember that I was really, really fascinated by. And one of these ideas was this, this was just how to work with photocopies and use the same photocopy and put different effects to create these 8 different pieces. And this was something that I still really interests me. And there was this other piece here, this collaged clown, and actually using collage within the garment to kind of make up the garment of this clown figure. That was something that I used to find really fascinating. And also this, I think this is a very similar idea to the photocopies. To this, it's just the same image you used over and over with different effects. So it's very similar to this. And just looking at, going through this again and kind of going down memory lane again, I decided to try my hand at something like this. So kind of combining a couple of these ideas. So the collaged clown and, these little tags of the same photocopy. Except that I don't really feel like working with photocopies. Oh, this is another one where it's the same image kind of just used in different ways. But I really like these kind of collaged figures per se, and I decided that I would experiment and just play a little and do something a little different in my art journal, and I'll take you along with me for that. So what I decided to do was to sketch out a little figure and collage over it and then use it as a focal point in my art journal. Now you can do this one of 2 ways. You can either, as I have done here, draw the entire face and the little figure and a little headdress for your figure on a piece of paper. Or if you have face stamps in your stash, then use those and just draw in a little body for your figure. If you can, kind of see on the paper, I did try to stamp a face, and that is the only face stamp that I have in my collection. But drawing out a body to go with this particular face made it just too big for my art journal. So I decided to draw a face on my own and sketch it out. And once I was happy with it, I cut this little figure out, and I will now then collage on this. So I just used copy paper to do this. You can do it on cardstock if you wish. And I'm quickly just going to check that she actually does fit in my art journal. And she does. So now we'll move on to the next step. So I've pulled out some collage papers from my stash. And I was trying to decide whether I should use scrapbook paper or some of this, this is like some under paper, and these are just some pieces of book paper on which I wiped off my brushes. And I decided that I would use more of my own papers for this. But you can definitely use scrapbook paper as well. And what I'm going to do now is kind of just see if these colors kind of just work together. I don't think this does. I don't think this does. This could provide a little bit of contrast maybe, but I'm gonna set this aside. I think these would work well together. So I'm going to just be cutting and gluing and, creating this dress out of these little collage pieces. So now I'm kind of just playing around with these little pieces of painted paper to see which areas I would like to collage down onto the uh, figure of the girl to make her garment. And I'm just going to tear the area that I want, because also that little tear line makes a very natural neckline for the garment, and that's interesting. And once I have stuck down this piece of collaged paper, I will just kind of flip this doll over and trim off the excess, and just make sure to burnish down your collage paper well, if you use glue stick. And then it's just another little time spent looking for another piece that can go at the bottom of the dress. And after trying out a lot of these little pieces of paper that I have here, I didn't really like any of them. So I decided to pull out my stash of washi tapes and see if something caught my eye from there. All of my washi tapes are from the washi tape shop. I really love their washis. They're absolutely gorgeous, and I think the best part is that they have free international shipping, so it kind of makes it easier to indulge in some washi now and then. And just so you know, I have a affiliate link for the washi tape shop, and if you use that and the code that goes with it, you can get 10% off your next washi tape order from them. So I'll leave that down in the description box below, but you can just use any washi tape that you have in your own stash that goes with the kind of papers that you are using on this figure. Or really just, take some time here to mix and match the different papers that you have in your collection and just see what would look interesting to you. So here I'm trying to figure out what I'd like to do for her headdress, and when I find the piece that I want, I trace around the image so that I can cut it out. And I make that little traced area a little bit bigger than the figure is, just so that I have a little room to play with in case something goes wrong. And as you will see here, something did go wrong. When I cut this, this paper up, I realized that it didn't quite fit the contours of the face. So I improvised. With this little piece of paper that I cut off, that would have covered her face, well, that kind of fits perfectly under both of those little pieces, right? So what I did is that I just glued them down in the area that would otherwise have been stark white. And then I glued that little collaged piece over it. And I think that turned out pretty well. So we improvise as we go. And then trim around the figure. Trim off all the excess. If you want to keep some of the excess, you can. Just make sure that the shape looks pleasing to you. And then I used an archival stamp pad and just went around the edges of the figure to give it, an edging, if you will. And now I have found a little figure within the layer of paint, and I'm just using an Inktense pencil to bring that out. And the thing that I really like, the thing that is really interesting for me, is how these two ideas kind of just worked together here. So the idea to use a paper doll is a reminder of my journey, of where I started from, of the things that interested me and the kind of, fell by the wayside over the years. I forgot about them. And this page, or this, thing that I want to create in my art journal, is like a reminder of where this journey began. And since I ended up, using my own painted papers, or my own papers from my collage stash, what happened is that there is a little bit of my current style that is visible here, because with a lot of my intuitive paintings, which is what I really love to do, I tend to look for figures and shapes within the layers of paint. And I found that here. I found this little figure in this, within this garment, and I'm very loosely pulling it out. So I'm not really going to spend any time actually, drawing in a face or anything like that. I just want this suggestion of this figure here. And I love the fact that my current style and my old style, if you will, I just love the way that they have mingled together to create this little piece, and I really, really love how it's looking. So I'm just going to put in a few more little marks, put in some shading around the face, just using again an Inktense pencil that I will then activate, and adding in a few little doodles here and there, just so that it looks more interesting, it comes together a little bit better. And I think that this video is already getting really long, so I'm going to cut this into 2 parts. So this is the first part, of course, and this is just going to be kind of making this little art doll and having her ready. And in the next video then we will put her into the art journal. So we'll kind of look for her story and figure out how to do a background and how to add her into the journal page. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you for walking down memory lane with me, for trying something a little different. Yeah, I hope that you kind of run with this idea in your own art journal. Feel free to make this idea your own. Use your scrapbook paper, old collage paper, and just make this little playful art doll, and then meet me again back here. And we'll put it into our art journals. So stay tuned for part 2, and I'll see you with that video next. For more art journaling goodness, do visit me on moderngypsy.in, and do hit the like and subscribe button.